today I'm gonna take 10 of the brand new Formula 1 Lego sets and make my very own F1 race. Because coming out on the 1st of March 2025, Lego is releasing one of every single Formula 1 team for the first time ever. We're gonna take a look at all 10 of the different cars, and then I'm gonna teach you how to make every single driver on the starting grid for the 2025 season. There's a couple of important things to note with these cars. Firstly, no, they are not all the exact same model, just in a different color, which I am very, very grateful for. However, every single car does have the exact same build for both the front and the rear wing. The differences can be quite minor, but there are some really interesting build techniques throughout the entire wave of cars. But the bigger elephant in the room is the fact that even before these cars have actually officially come out, they have all but one become incredibly outdated. Because if you didn't know, the liveries for each team for the 2025 season just got revealed, and some of them are very, very vastly different. But ultimately, these cars were meant to represent the 2024 season. However, because of Lego and Formula 1's production timelines, it has unfortunately left us with quite a poorly timed release in the grand scheme of things. That aside though, let's talk the price of these, as each car is going to set you back 27 US dollars, 40 Australian and 23 Great British pounds, which is really pushing it. However, this has been the price of individual speed champions for a little while now, so it really shouldn't come as a surprise. If you're buying one car, you could probably look past it. However, if you're looking at getting multiple teams or getting one of each like I did, it is going to be a very costly endeavor. So what do you get for that price? Well, firstly, you get a giant amount of stickers in every single car, thanks to the corporate sponsors. Though that being said, there are a lot more printed pieces than I was expecting, mainly being the large front panel piece, which is printed on 3 sides, all of the tires, all of the tire caps, and every single 1x1 piece with the team logos on the front, with the exception of the McLaren, since it has the Google Chrome logo. So these prices to me did feel a little bit more justified than some of the other Speed Champions cars that I have built previously. However, it is still really, really pushing it. Starting off with the back of the grid, aka the sets that aren't going to sell as well, we have Sauber, Williams, RB, Haas, and Alpine. And RIP to Carlos Sainz and any of his fans out there, since he is driving in a Williams this year. Don't get it twisted though, I am rooting for him. First up, let's take a look at the Sauber car, which in Lego form, it's probably honestly the only time that this car's ever going to excel in anything, unfortunately. Because having such a small amount of corporate sponsors actually ended up being a good thing in this situation, because it gave it by far the smallest sticker sheet out of every car in this collection, which also leaves it looking as one of the cleanest out of this collection. Now, the Sauber is actually one of 2 green cars that you can get out of this entire collection, and they've gone with a bright green color with this one in order to differentiate it a little bit from the Aston Martin, which unfortunately just does not really look like the right color at all. Moving on, we have the Williams, which is a very simple build out of all of the cars. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it definitely is something to note, but it also makes it a very sturdy car if you were rolling it around or racing with it or just playing with it in general. The best feature about this car though is that it comes pre-assembled in the box, which I just think is absolutely incredible, and I'm sorry to all of the William mechanics out there. RB really drew the short end of the stick by completely changing up their livery for 2025, making this car the most redundant out of all of the bunch. The new version features a lot of white and yellow, just making this one feel completely different. There are not many aspects of this Lego set that look like the current model, which is really quite a shame, because I feel like this had one of the coolest uses of build techniques and stickers out of the entire range. And speaking of Red Bull, both the RB and the actual Red Bull car are the only 2 sets in this wave to be classified as 18+ and have a completely different instruction manual and of course age rating. If they didn't kick Daniel Ricciardo off the team, you could also say it's because the team just likes doing shoeies. However, they did that. I'm still not over it. Next up, we have the Haas, which has some really awesome red and white detailings throughout. However, similar to the RB, they did change quite a bit of the new livery for this year, which means the colors on this one are actually inverted to what we're going to be seeing in the 2025 season. Like the Williams, it is a lot more simpler when it comes to build techniques, and also is quite a low profile car thanks to these inverted plates being stuck on the bottom. The Alpine really benefits here from having such an eye-catching color scheme with the use of the pink and blue, and in Lego form, I think turns out really, really nice. Like Haas, it has these large curve pieces on either side, so be careful when applying the stickers and make sure you try to get them as close to the edge as possible so that it can look really nice and smooth overall. Now we're moving up to the front of the grid, where you have everyone's favorite teams, I guess, besides the Aston Martin on the end there. All that is to say, if you're a fan of any of these teams, these are probably going to be the ones that are going to be much harder to find. And out of this lineup, we've actually seen 3 of these teams quite recently. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the biggest issue with the Aston Martin is that the color color just does not look right. I personally feel that using teal would have been a little bit more accurate, but ultimately there is not a Lego color that exists that would look perfect for this car. At the end of the day, I'm gonna pin that on Aston Martin for having such a weird color scheme for their team, and it's really the main reason that this particular set is my least favorite out of the bunch. Moving up, we have Mercedes, and this car is a massive upgrade from the older one. I just think the design of this looks so much cleaner. Some of the highlights for me include these printed curve pieces at the very back of the car. I think that looks really clean, as well as the use of tiles in conjunction with these stickered panels in order to make the teal and silver detailing on the car. And overall, I think I'm a bigger fan of this as a Lego set than I was the actual car in the 2024 season. Next up, we have Red Bull, who is actually one of the cars that I was most excited to build, despite being one of my least favorite teams. Yes, I am not a fan of Max Verstappen. They might be able to redeem me this year with Liam Lawson on the team. However, I'm not a fan of Red Bull overall. That being said though, I think that this is one of the better cars out of the entire lineup. The printed yellow Red Bull piece at the back is absolutely incredible, and I love the color scheme and just the detail overall. A large part of that I do think just comes from the Red Bull livery being quite an interesting looking car to me in the first place, but I think it really translated to Lego very well. And the printed curve piece at the very front is definitely the best and coolest looking out of all of the cars in this range. Next up is the team that everyone has their eye on right now, and that is Ferrari. This was the first car that I built out of the bunch because it was the one that I was definitely the most excited to see. I have been patiently waiting for them to make a Ferrari Speed Champions car, and I am so impressed with the result. I love the use of these hinge pieces and slopes in order to make these side panels with the Ray-Ban logo on them, and I think the red just looks so fun. I also want to commend Lego for the use of the HP stickers in the graphic design here, since that sponsor did get added on quite late in the 2024 season, which ultimately I think is why a lot of these sponsored pieces are stickers, so it's really easy for them to swap out if need be. Ferrari is such an iconic team with an iconic color scheme, and Lego has done such an amazing job with this, and I am really in love with this model. And last but certainly not least, we have our constructors champions and my personal favorite team, McLaren, which is quite ironic because I feel like this car is the flimsiest out of all of these Lego models. And it's really unfortunate to me because I'm a really big fan of the livery that they had for 2024 and have now brought into 2025, but there are these little plate panels that are just held on by this anti-stud connection, and they are constantly falling off. They are not held on there well, and these curved pieces are also constantly falling off every time I pick up this car or touch this car. It is so flimsy and a real disappointment for me. Thankfully, however, after this video, I plan to mostly just hang them up on my wall and have them as part of my little McLaren, or I guess now F1 grid display. But if you were playing with this car, this is not a good model at all. In terms of actually racing and playing around, I think the older model of this set is much more strong with the older livery. However, if you are a collector and a big fan of McLaren, I would still pick this up, but just a really big word of warning, it is constantly going to break on you. Each set comes with one minifigure featuring a printed torso and printed helmet to represent the team that they're in. Besides Red Bull and RB, the torsos are actually the same as the ones that you can find in the Lego City range of F1 sets, making it way easier to source the parts to make another 10 drivers and complete your grid. However, the minifigures are just random Lego City citizens, so if you want to make particular drivers, you'll have to use your own parts. So I went digging through my pieces and various minifigures and managed to pull together every single one of the current 2025 drivers. So in my F1 lineup, I have number 4, Lando Norris, 81, Oscar Piastri, 44, Sir Lewis Hamilton, 16, Charles Leclerc, 1, Max Verstappen, 30, Liam Lawson, 63, George Russell, 12, Kimi Antonelli, 14, Fernando Alonso, 18, Lance Stroll, 10, Pierre Gasly, 7, Jack Doan, 22, Yuki Tsunoda, 6, Isaac Hadjar, 31, Esteban Ocon, 87, Ollie Behrman, 55, Carlos Sainz, 23, Alex Albon, 27, Nico Hulkenberg, and number 5, Gabriel Bortello. However, since I've only got one torso for each team at the moment, I decided to go with my favorite driver from each. Next up, I wanted to make a strip of the track, so I used these Lego City road plates as the base, building the grid markers and making a middle piece so that the full car could fit. I repeated this several times and then combined all of the pieces together to make a starting grid strip long enough to fit 6 cars in total while still fitting on my desk. Then I began working on a finish line using black and white square tiles and building up an archway around it. To do the archway, I started by making the start lights and then built the arch around it using just basic black bricks and tiling it off at the top for a smooth finish. Finally, it was to make an area for the audience to sit, so I got started on a grandstand. I measured this out using some green plates and then divided that in half so I could have 2 separate sections that could connect to make one long seating section. Lastly, I added a couple of lampposts so that it could help illuminate the grandstands and track in the event of a night race, and when I put each section together, the build was finally complete, besides of course the audience members. I rummaged through my LEGO collection grabbing a bunch of different characters, some fitting for a race and some others that I feel like would probably just enjoy the festivities of Formula One. And as I loaded up the grid with my imaginary qualifying positions, my entire Formula One race is complete. Sadly, I did have to cut 4 teams from this starting lineup because my desk is just not long enough, but overall I am really happy with how this looks, as simple as this mock is. And now that my mock's complete, I am more excited than ever for things to kick off in Albert Park in a couple of weeks and just to see where the 2025 season takes us. Personally, I'm hoping for a lot of Hamilton wins and of course a lot of podiums from Oscar Piastri as well, since he is definitely my favorite driver. And unfortunately for Toto Wolff, even in my little LEGO world, Mercedes are not having the greatest run. Let me know who your favorite team and driver is down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, consider subscribing to my channel, and until next time, I'll see you later.